So last winter I was doing a bunch of machining and got the huge clouds of smoke going in my house, and once again I thought it was time I should probably put an exhaust fan in my shop. So I did some searching on the internet and found a 4-inch inline fan. Apparently the druggies really need these for something. Don't know what, but it came from a horticulture supply. Anyways, to minimize the value damage to my house, I'm just going to use a standard 4-inch, I found the receipt, 4-inch dryer vent on the outside of the house. That way, if and when I have to move, I can just cap this guy off on the inside, insulate it, seal it up, and then finish my shop off, and it's a legal bedroom again. That needs to go somewhere right about up there. On the outside of the house on this corner is my electric meter and my gas meter. So I just don't want to willy-nilly drill holes through that wall. For a reference mark, this is the window into my shop. If you look straight back here, let me see if I can get it better. Right back there is the edge of the concrete for the window. So my theory on life is I'm going to measure from this concrete on the outside of the house over to where the electric meter is and figure out where I want to place it, then come back to the inside, measure from this edge straight up to the rafters there, move over, and then drill my hole from the inside out to get the spacing up and down correct. So here we have the fan out of the box, and I just have a standard light dimmer hooked up to it to try and control its speed. So if I turn this on a little bit, there we see some speed control, and I don't have, there you go, gives you an idea of how much air it's putting out versus that. And then if I go out to full speed, as you can hear and see, quite a bit more air. So I think that's going to be my long-term plan, is I'll just get a cheap dimmer put in line with this guy. I might even just mount this guy to the wall and call it good. And that will be my fan control. The reason I'm adding a speed control to it is a lot of times I don't need the kind of volume this sucker can put out. I can't remember what number was advertised, but it was a huge amount of CFMs. A lot of times when I'm just like soldering or putzing around on my bench, maybe sanding, I just need a small amount of air movement just to suck the fumes away. And other times when I'm taking heavy cuts with lots of cutting fluid and generating tons of smoke, I might need the full volume. That is the plan for the fan. And then this whole thing has a little mounting bracket right sitting on top of the other piece of styrofoam, and it will get shoved up in that cavity. There is my plan. Okay, quick update. There's my window framed. I used a plumb bob on a string to transfer the edge of the concrete, which is just on the inside of that 2x4, up to the top there. Went outside, did the same thing, and measured over to where I want the vent to pop out, which was 50 inches in this case once I take into account the width of the vent. Measured over 50 inches to that little mark, and then using a set of squares and other doodads, transferred the mark and marked the center of the rim joist of the house. So up next, I'm going to drill a hole through from this side and then go outside, or drill a pilot hole through from this side and then go outside and use the hole saw to cut through the siding and then back away, all the way in. And I see light, so I think that step was a success. Welcome to windy Minnesota. Here's what I need for the outside. First you need the dryer vent. some roofing nails, hammer. This little tool is actually meant to take vinyl siding apart, which my house is made out of. Some caulk to seal it up, pry bar to pull some nails, and then a drill with a 4-inch hole saw. Now right there, which I can't see on the camera in the shadow, is the hole I punched through from the outside. So as you can see, this area is kind of packed, but it should work out in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole. I'm going to drill through the siding and then the inside of the house, and I'll cut back in once that's done. Layer 1, now I'm committed. So I just cut through the vinyl, and this is the Tyvek, and there's the sheeting. Okay, and here's layer 2. So I've cut through the vinyl, the sheeting, and then there's that engineered I-beam. That's the rim joist. And here we're all the way through. So we got vinyl siding, Tyvek, sheeting, engineered I-joist, and there's my shop. And there we go. We're all said and done. Right? You know, no problem. Okay, got a couple of tools, had to go dig them out. So first thing to note on these flanges is there's a line where the siding goes. The reason for this gap is vinyl siding expands a lot, and if you don't do that, it will bump. So I just used a pencil and a carpenter square to mark out the lines, and then I'm going to use a vibra tool to cut the siding. You can use tin snips too, this just is way easier. And there's my hole with the lines around it. Okay, so I've cut the first set of lines as best I can. As you can see, it's still hooked up in here where the two edges lock into each other. Now I'm going to strip the siding down, try and get it apart. So this tool, you just shove it up in there and then give it a quick pull with that, and voila, it's open. Okay, so I got that all cut out, including, can't do it with the camera, including up to here where it was covered up by this sheet. Next thing, I need to apply a lot of caulk, slide that vent pipe in and get it behind this vinyl, which is probably going to require finish taking these off just so I can pull this out enough to get behind it. And apply lots of caulk, because you want between this flange and the house to be all sealed up. Try that again. So here it is all put in. There's just 4 roofing nails around the edge. They're pounded in, but not all the way, so this still can float a little bit. That's how the vinyl siding systems work. Just ease getting them in, I used a pair of needle nose to start them, and then a standard punch just to finish them off in there with a hammer. I've also reinstalled the nails that hold this sheet on, and I'm ready to clip this one back in and reassemble the telephone box I took off to give me more flexibility to get this behind. So I'll come back when that's done. One more thing you want to check before you put this all back together is make sure your flapper is all nice and loose. If it gets stuck closed, well, not a very good vent. If it gets sucked open, all the wind and cold air will come rushing in the winter. Also a bad thing. And hot air in the summer, I guess. All that's left is for me to snap that guy on. And there you go. So that completes the outside work on putting in this shop vent. And there's what the inside looks like once it's all installed. And you can see the light come and go as the flapper opens as the wind changes direction outside. Next up, figuring out how to get this mounted to that and tucked up in there. Okay, before mounting it, I did a little bit of prep work. First problem was this bracket here. This bracket here originally only had a place to mount on this side, which would made the exhaust, when it was mounted up to the rafter like that, point towards me, which didn't really work with what space I had left up there. So first thing I did is measured these holes, moved them to the other side, and screwed the bracket on there. I also attached this elbow on the output and this T to the input. No holes for that. These are just some little self-tapping sheet metal screws, the ones with a little drill point on the end of them. Plan is I'll probably take this off before mounting because it'll be much easier to thread these in now that the holes are there once this is mounted up there versus trying to get this T in place and drill these holes with it up there. Basically, these 2 screws would be impossible to get to. So that's where that's at. Next up, try and cram it into that hole and secure it. Well, as many of you on the internet probably already noticed before I tried it, the body of this blower is way too big to fit through that gap. Not only is it too big this way, it was too big this way. I did luck out. Once I was able to take this off, this does clear that opening, which means I'm going to have to reassemble this once it's in place. What I've done is put the rim joist insulation back. At some point I need to wrap insulation around that pipe just so it doesn't condense if there's a little bit of a cold draft coming in. I kind of super lucked out. With that elbow in place, with the stock length tube, it puts the opening, this opening, exactly this far away from the next joist. So if I can get this thing up there, it should fit perfectly, and just screw it down and call it good. That said, it's getting kind of late here. I got some other stuff to get done, so this will be a topic for another video in the future someday, hopefully. Till next time, laters.